Hello and welcome to The Banker. I am Silvia Pavoni, economics editor of the magazine, and I'm joined by my colleagues Danielle, Myles, investment banking and capital markets editor, and Joy Macknight, technology and transaction banking editor. So we are here to discuss Brexit. Surprise, surprise. Obviously, there has been quite a lot of talk about investment banks potentially relocating staff abroad. So Danielle, how do you feel about these announcements? Are they actually going to do it?
Absolutely. I guess one of the big macro questions to stem from this is London's future as an investment banking hub. And one of the first signs of that changing would be, desks and business lines moving out of the city. And obviously, within hours of Friday morning, there were reports of a number of the bigger banks already sort of supposedly cutting jobs or moving people. I'm not 100% too sure how much that's actually happening. I know some banks have issued statements to say that's not the case. And
so let's call names. So Morgan Stanley on the Friday sent out an email saying, actually, we are going to move 2,000 people possibly to Dublin and Frankfurt. But then that became a little bit.
So I understand that was leaked by someone, and then later on the bank came out and said, no, that's not the case. And HSBC and JP Morgan, before the vote, or before the referendum, said they would look at moving jobs, which I guess would make sense. But then again, on Friday, none of that was confirmed by them. So still very much up in the air. And I guess, as with so many of these things that we're going to be talking about for a very long time, it depends on the arrangement that is negotiated between the UK and the EU.
And so the key here is business related to euro and euro trades. Obviously, the UK was allowed to settle such trades in London because of its membership to the EU, even if the currency is not euro in the UK. And this was backed by a decision made by the European Court of Justice only last year. But I think everybody here is expecting this decision to be revoked.
That's right. It's quite interesting timing considering that decision only came out a year ago, and it's something that the ECB has pushed for a long time, to have all euro-denominated clearing, anything that poses a risk to the eurozone really, in the EU. So with the result on Thursday and Friday, I mean, that decision is definitely on shaky ground. So we'll have to wait and see how that pans out. But definitely people are saying that if anything is moved in terms of businesses to the Eurozone, to the continent, that will be one of the first things to be moved.
And the centres that have been mentioned are Frankfurt, Dublin and Paris.
That's right.
Far, at least we have some potential interest around those centres. Now, something else that I know you've been taking an interest in, obviously, is the potential merger between the London Stock Exchange and Deutsche Boerse. A big question mark over that one.
Absolutely, yeah. And this is actually the third time they've tried to merge, and the first two times it fell through. This third time, certainly something much beyond their control, it seems. The votes are due, the shareholders are due to vote on the 4th and the 12th, and that vote was pushed back to be delayed till after the referendum. Obviously, both exchanges have come out and said we still think this merger could work. The strategy is still there, but certainly, once again, the German regulators, or the approvals that they would need to give, they've already said they're going to be very reluctant to give those if the merged entity would be in London, which is what is proposed. So we'll definitely have to wait and see what happens there. It might be one of the first victims in terms of deals from Brexit.
So deals, what about impact on any other deals?
Sure. So it's quite interesting because certainly there were some deals which were ready to go immediately after Friday, and even some IPOs apparently were scheduled to launch on Friday if there was a vote to remain. They've been obviously postponed. Also, in terms of M&A, there was lots of talk leading up to the referendum about there wasn't deals weren't necessarily being held off, but there were lots of questions from clients, and everyone said once we have certainty either way, deals will pick up. There is certainty in terms of the outcome, but obviously it's a very uncertain situation. So
in terms of how and when Brexit will materialise, or if even now, there are obviously theories saying that it may not even happen.
Absolutely.
Very interesting.
A bit of a dim outlook for deal flow.
So that's about investment banking and capital markets. Joy, what about the fintech space?
Well, there's a lot of concern amongst the fintech startup community, really, because when you talk about banks like Morgan Stanley or HSBC moving jobs to Europe, that actually impacts the talent pool that the fintechs have access to. And it's not just about hiring ex-bankers to join the fintechs, but it's also about mentorship that they provide for the fintech community in order to scale up and to really address their business to the banking industry.
What about another fantastic acronym? I think that has become your favorite this year, RegTech. What about regulation in the fintech space? How Brexit will affect it?
Well, London is supposed to be the RegTech capital of the world, and obviously the UK FCA has opened this regulatory sandbox to help startups really navigate that. And to be honest, it seems like that Brexit could put that up at jeopardy as well, because obviously then the fintechs have to, it's not just EU standards and regulatory environment that they have to address, but they'll have to also adhere to UK's regulatory environment, which will be different.
Of course. And presumably they would also lose the passporting rights that they now have in a UK that is part of the EU. So passporting right, they give them access to the whole of the EU markets.
Yeah, well, that's a huge thing, is the passporting issue, because fundamentally a lot of startups from all around the world, whether it's Singapore, Australia, Africa, come to the UK because it has a very high standard, high regulatory environment, but it also gives them the opportunity to then passport and sell their services within Europe, which of course is a much bigger market. So not to have that ability will actually be a real dampener on the fintech community itself.
What about the general climate of uncertainty and volatility? Surely that must be hurting funding abilities of these new companies, these startups in the fintech space.
I think it definitely will. There's been just a huge wave of investment into fintech startups, and there's been this, great boom, which has been so important. But when you come to either an economic turndown maybe, or even, as you say, the uncertainty in the market, it will mean that banks and other investors will be less, will be, I guess, more reticent to invest at this moment. Just
in higher risk ventures.
Exactly.
All right. Well, so the only thing we really know now is that this uncertainty will continue for a few more months, and we will make sure to keep our readers and listeners updated. Thank you.